You should know. I swore you off the day you told me you found someone new. I try to think about you less, but yet here I am vomiting words onto a keyboard that appear onto your screen in some desperate hope that you'll read them and everything will change. Do I want them to change? Parts of me do. The part of me that is still laying in the hotel room, flipping through channels and professing my never-dying love for you. The parts of me that are sitting under that shed watching as the sun sinks into the mountains with you. The parts of me that stood so motionless when I first saw you in that dress. The one with the sheer fabric, that when the sun shone through, I could see your shapely legs. Those parts are screaming for me to do something, to do anything in an attempt to win you back. Then there are other parts. The ones that are rational and strong. The ones that saw how you tried to break up with me at least a dozen times before I left. The ones that saw how you treated yourself. The parts of me that saw the writing on the wall as soon as I stepped into the van to take me home. The parts of me that knew as soon as I was hearing word of you with other men. The parts of me that looked up into that doorway and saw her. And then, like a flood, only seen by Noah and his cronies, it all came rushing back. This feeling, this everlasting feeling, time stopped. I saw only her, and in the dim light of this doorway with the pungent smell of hot dogs and onions, it was her hand and her grip that caught my attention. I snapped up from working when I realized she wouldn't let go. My eyes met hers. A small wry smile tugged at my mouth. "Can I have my hand back?" I began to say. She returned the smile with her full lips, her slate blue eyes stopping onto my dull hazel ones. "Hello," she said. "What's your name?" Completely ignoring my request for my hand back. I stammered. I've never been taken off guard so quickly and so aggressively. "Bruce." She was already pulling her phone out to find me on Facey Space or My Book or Instapixel or whatever social media platform was the word of the day. I regrettably informed her that I wasn't on social media because of you, because I didn't want to sit through hours of images of you and him and his kid. I couldn't tell her that. How would that sound? My ex ripped my heart from my chest because she wanted something that I wanted to wait for, so now I pass my days by trying to avoid every instance of her name or status. I would go on to explain that in the short few months that I knew you, I had fallen madly in love, or lust, with you. That you were really the only reason I made it through Arizona. That if I didn't have you around, I would have quit, and I would have never made it through. But in this very instance, in this very moment, standing in this doorway with time stopped and hot dog scented air, your memory went away. Those long discussions of Gustav Klimt or koi fish or planned futures and hurt pasts, all of them gone. I was a clean slate, renewed and refreshed. Suddenly I was driven, like before. There was nothing that would stand in the way of me getting to know her. "What's yours?" I would inquire. She giggled and batted her eyes. Sarah. In an instant, this feeling now had a name. It terrified me, because in that moment that I was standing in this doorway, feeling this feeling, I recognized it. The thrumming of my heart and an unheard beat. I've been here before, I thought. In the following weeks, we've talked every day. Her favorite color is purple, and while she's never had sushi, she'd be happy to try it. She enjoys gardening and looks forward to spending time with me. She's direct, upfront, and matter-of-fact. Her words come with no frills. She doesn't say things because they would sound good in a Nicholas Sparks movie. She says things because she means them. And then, like an atomic blast, it was over. Boom. Gone. Flash, fire, and death. I woke up one morning and fired off my standard good morning text. No response. For 3 days, there was no response, no reasoning, nothing, silence and cold. Once again, I felt alone and betrayed. How is it someone could promise the sun and the moon and then turn around and walk away? What drives a person to make such a deep committed promises and go back on them so easily? I said before, and I told you this, that nothing was sacred anymore. I was daring you to prove me wrong, and you failed, and she failed. So here I go on, alone in this crazy game we call life. So that was something I wrote a couple years ago. I had to go to Arizona and do some training, and I fell madly in love with this young woman, and we hit it off really well, and we were always by each other's side, and she was my support system. And then I had to leave Arizona, and they say that time and distance makes a heart grow fonder, but that is very incorrect, because as soon as I left, it was infidelity and all this other stuff. But moving past that, I had met this other girl, and I'd met her at my work, and I work as a bouncer, and so I was working as a door, and she showed up, and we hit it off again. We were real close. But it was a long distance thing. I lived in Washington, and she lived down in Oregon, and she had to leave back to Oregon, and it was that whole distance thing, and broke it off.
Oh my goodness. So, I'm George. This is Bruce, and this is the minimal effort. We had a little audio snafu just now, but I think it's all fixed up. We'll be able to fix it in post.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So, this is a project that we're doing called the Minimal Effort, and it's a passion project. And the name, the Minimal Effort, comes from the fact that we both work full-time jobs.
Right.
We got to pay the bills.
Yep.
We got to be responsible, all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
we both, Bruce is a writer.
Mm-hmm.
I like to write music. So we figured this was an outlet for us that we could take advantage of with the minimal effort and still be able to meet our responsibilities.
Right.
with
Back
our
at work.
Jobs.
Yeah.
Back at work. And taking care of our families and so on. So
the entire concept, though, is that I'll write something and I'll read it for the first half, and the second half, or the second segment, George will perform some kind of song or music or whatever. But the entire time we're going to be drinking, and so today I'm drinking the Heavy Seas Cutlass. It's a Vienna-style lager. I think this is maybe the third lager I've ever had in my entire life.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not much of a lager guy?
I am now.
You like it?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Lagers are good. They're kind of even keel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Heavy Seas?
Yeah, it's called Heavy Seas. I don't know where they're from, though.
We're label readers.
Yeah, oh yeah. Absolutely. I'm going to say it's somewhere from the east, because where we're from, they don't have this.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never heard of it before.
Neither have I.
Vienna-style lager. And so I'm drinking with an old friend, Mr. Jameson. This is my favorite middle-of-the-shelf whiskey.
Yeah.
Because it's affordable enough that I can get it without, spending $300 on a bottle of whiskey.
Oh, like the Jameson Blue or Black Label or whatever.
Yeah,
that is.
or like
Oh,
Johnny
my
Walker
Lord.
Blue. Yeah.
Oh, I see those and I get sticker shock just looking at them.
I know, but they're so good. I mean, it's worth the money, but who's got that kind of money? Well, people got that kind of money. We don't.
Right.
We
Right.
have to work and podcast.
And podcast, yeah.
Yeah. So cheers to
Cheers.
This, our first episode. And today, Bruce was talking about a blog post that he had written how many years ago?
2 years ago. 2 years ago.
And before you say anything, I just want to point out real quick, as a writer, you have a very interesting voice. Not
Right.
your physical voice.
Right.
But the way that you write things, this almost reads as a narrative, even though it's a stream of thought that's directed at a single person. And it's got everything. It's got denial, divided parts of yourself, perceived everlasting feelings,
Yeah.
some interesting word choice, and then replacing one thing or another, dependence
Right.
on another person. And you address all these things in this nostalgic imagery.
Right. So the funny thing about it, though, is that when I was writing it, I was actually in the throes with Sarah, the second female character in there. And then it wasn't the last paragraph where the tone of it suddenly changes. That was at least 4 or 5 days after I realized like she wasn't something that was going to stick around. Because originally the first draft was going to end off on this note, like, I hope that we have this really great future and do all these other things. I plan to visit her, and then like she left or disappeared or wherever she went, and then that whole last paragraph changed. And the story of how the piece was made is more interesting to me than the actual piece itself, because a life event changed the entire narrative of it, right?
Interesting.
Right. So it started out with like, girl from Arizona, you should know all this stuff about how I've moved on from you and now I have this happy life, to girl from Arizona, I've moved on from you and now I'm right back where I started.
Now I'm
from where
doing
I
the
left.
same
Yeah,
thing that
exactly.
we did. Yeah, same
Yeah.
old dance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
precisely. And then moving forward from that, like this was one of the moments where it pushed me into the philosophy of Stoicism. And one of the things about Stoicism is that when you get into a relationship, your partner owes you nothing. right? And you owe your partner nothing. You both exist separately outside of a whole, right? You can't control her emotions, and you can't control her thoughts or feelings, and she can't do the same for you, right? You're going to have your thoughts and your feelings, and you're going to be able to make your own decisions and your own actions, and you will be the one held accountable for them, right? And I was spinning off of the whole they don't owe you anything. Like,
Yeah.
the girl from Arizona doesn't owe me anything. Sarah doesn't owe me anything. I'm here, I'm me, and these are my own emotions, and I'm my own person.
So that's what you left off with at the end of it.
Right,
That
yes.
was one of my questions. Is you interestingly chose to end this whole thought process with a couple of questions.
Right.
How is it that someone can promise you the sun and the moon and then just walk away?
Right.
But you said, what drives a person to make such deep, committed promises and go back on them so easily? I mean, at this point, how many years ago was this?
2 years.
Do you have an answer to that question?
No.
yet? No?
No, absolutely not. I still don't understand the dynamic of a relationship between a man and a woman, because, like, even since then, I've been in several relationships where they've done the exact same thing. You
Yeah.
know, they throw themselves into this relationship with you, and they engulf themselves, and they promise you the moon and the stars, and then, you know, pull the trees up from the stumps, and then something happens, and it was just words, you know, hot air out of their mouth, and that's one thing I've struggled to understand in, like, the human dynamic, is how you could just so easily make a promise like that and then go back on it so quickly.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's because we're human. You know, I used to work with this guy back in 2010. I want to say it is.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me one time something really interesting. He said, "Hey, man, don't sweat it. You know, relationships are complicated because people are involved."
Yes.
And I think people are complicated.
Yeah.
And that kind of draws me into the beauty of what you've written here, which kind of permeates as a theme throughout this podcast, is that painful as this may have been,
Right.
and liberating as it may have been to write it, it's still this kind of poignant snapshot of a moment in time in your life.
Right, and that's how I approach my writing, is that I'm not trying to write a story, and I'm not trying to create the next, you know, great American novel. Like, I'm not going to write the next Great Gatsby. It's not going to happen, and that's fine. You know, like,
You're just gonna live it.
I'm just going to live it, and I'd rather take these slices of life and just, like, show them to people, right? Like, this is what happened to me today, and this is how I felt about it. Like, there's another piece that I'm writing about, like, the sky, like what it looks like in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening, which is kind of a mundane topic, but then when you actually apply words to it, you know, you start to see the beauty in what you're actually looking into. And that's the same thing. Like, that may have been an emotional and painful moment for me, but, you know, what makes us human is the fact that we can feel emotion and that we understand them. And yeah, it might be painful and it might hurt, but you're still going to move on from it, and that's the beauty in it.
Yeah, and you have to acknowledge
Right.
that they exist before you can do anything about it.
Right, yes.
Even write about it.
Yes, absolutely.
And writing, I don't know if it's the same for you, but writing for me tends to help me acknowledge things that are going on.
Yes, because having things in your head versus having things right there in front of you are two different things. Because if it's in my head, I can just be like, I can ignore it, right? It's just a thought, it's an intrusive thought. But if I write it down and I read it out loud, it suddenly exists in the world, right? I gave it credence, and now here it is, and now I have to deal with it.
And now it kind of stands alone as its own thing.
Correct. And,
Yeah.
and it's a way to compartmentalize that feeling and that emotion, set it aside, and move on from it.
Yeah, and what you were saying about having to change the ending, as it were,
Yeah.
reminds me of another quote that I can't source because I can't remember who said it. But if someone that's listening or watching knows, you should put it down in the comments, because I don't. But he said, and it was some literary guy. It wasn't just some Joe Schmo or, you know, Bruce. He said, "Nothing is ever written, only ever rewritten."
Right.
And it's interesting that you've got most of the way through this, which almost feels like a psychoanalysis of yourself,
Right.
On the surface of it, because you acknowledge the fact that you're divided emotionally, and you were in denial of the fact that she wanted to break up with you, and the feelings that you associated with that you perceived to be everlasting.
Yeah.
And you acknowledge that you were dependent on her as a support system, and that
Absolutely.
So that's an interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Because something that you and I talk about quite frequently is the concept of happiness.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. One of our mantras is happiness is a choice, and it is. It's true. You've said it plenty of times. And the only thing I can think of is like, if you're having a bad day, you can sit there at the end of the day and just let that bad day permeate through everything that you do, or you can choose to not let it, right? Because there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
We've used the example before about the printer and the guy who had a fight with his wife. That printer's not working. He's berating me because he had a fight with his wife. Well, I can't control any of that. So why am I going to let it have, an effect on my day?
Yeah.
On my happiness.
Yeah.
So.
And he's probably not going to tell you what's really going on.
Right. Absolutely. Because and that never happens.
Yeah.
Nobody ever tells you what is absolutely going on. The white elephant in the room.
Right.
They're going to pick whatever is bothering them at that moment and blow it up, mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah.
Type of style.
Yeah. Like a catalyst for their.
Yeah.
For their perceived slights.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I wanted to kind of point out in that same vein is that there's a difference between feeling happy and being happy.
Yes.
Right? Because feelings, oftentimes, you can't control.
Right.
They just happen. Right? Because we're humans, we're not robots. Things obviously affect us,
Yeah.
in one way or another.
Yeah.
But what we can control is ourselves and our actions and what we do about it, how we choose to address those feelings.
Right.
Sometimes you just need to cry.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're unhappy. It just means
you need to cry.
Just means
Yeah.
you need to cry.
Yeah.
And if that's your path to some form of stasis, then then good.
Yeah.
Then that's you choosing to be happy.
One of the things I like to say is that, I never make a threat when I'm angry, and I never make a promise when I'm happy. Because when I'm angry, I'm not in a state of mind that I can make sound decisions. And then when I'm really happy, or I'm feeling happy, those endorphins are coursing through my system, I'm still not in a state of mind to be able to make promises,
Right.
So, and that's kind of the whole concept that I live life through. I try to keep an even keel and a neutral temperament through life, because I know that if I'm even and I'm neutral, I'm happy, right?
Yeah.
And that's just like you were saying, there's a difference between feeling happy and being happy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like anything. Like, if you're in an altered mind state, you probably shouldn't be trusted with like the codes to nuclear missiles.
Exactly. Precisely.
Right. And the nuclear missiles in this context being a relationship, right?
Yeah.
So any last thoughts before we wrap up this segment?
No, we just got the 2-minute warning, so I'm Bruce. This is George. When we come back, George will have a song for us, which is the same concept and same overarching theme of what we're talking about tonight. And with that, we're going to go on a smoke break. So we're back. Oh, they shoot every time. So this is an Imperial Stout from the same brewing company, Heavy Seas.
Well carbonated.
Clearly, or
Yeah.
I just shook it up. Bruce, George is a musician, and he's got a song for us.
Take a photo of me while I make this memory. When we look at sigh because the memory lingers on when the grave is dark. What do I say at the end of the day? How many tears do I have to pay? Why do I weep when I'm going to sleep? You're on my mind and there's tears on my cheek, and I dream. What is it we sail for? What far shore is it we sing for? As our old face like the sun we'll see. The memory lingers on when the grave is dug. What do I say at the end of the day? How many tears do I have to pay? Why do I weep when I'm going to sleep? You're on my mind and there's tears on my cheek, and I dream. Oh, and I dream. And I dream, dream, How could something that seems so right keep me awake night after night, turning all that was light into black, changing my nightmares from fiction to fact? Even though now I can hate what you are, I look at them fondly like something afar, and I dream. Oh, oh, oh.
So that's a song called Pictures of San Francisco. There was a little audio snafu in the middle I had to take care of, and I gotta turn the talking volume back up. I think we distracted a couple people.
Yeah, I'm sure you've
around
noticed
here.
the people there. Caveat, we're in an alley between where people live, so there may or may not be people walking up and down as we do this. So, Pictures of San Francisco, where were you when you wrote that song?
I was
mentally.
Mentally.
Yeah.
Well, that's a different story. I mean, like, even right now, mentally, I'm somewhere else.
Right.
I wrote that song after my first girlfriend. It was like out of high school. You know, like met her working in a restaurant.
Like your first adult relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought she was great. You know. But then I went away to college, so I was physically in Moscow, Idaho.
Yeah.
When I started writing that song, and I was a music major down there at the Lionel Hampton School of Music, which is a great school.
Shameless plug.
I know. I'm not getting paid for this, and I'm not getting paid to tell you that I'm drinking Jameson either.
Nor am I getting paid to talk about heavy sales. Seas.
Heavy C's.
At least
Clearly,
you-
you're not getting paid to talk about it.
I should at least get it right if I'm going to tell them I'm not getting paid for it.
So we had taken this impromptu trip down to San Francisco.
You and your first girlfriend.
Right, yeah. Because she had broken up with me, and I was like, okay, that's cool, I guess, you know, moving on. But then she's just like, we should still do this trip to San Francisco. And I was like, I mean, okay, yes.
Right.
So we did it, and this was during a time whenever they only had, I mean, we had like flip phones. You know, it was 2007.
Like the Motorola Razr.
Yeah. So that's exactly what I had, was a Motorola Razr. So as far as taking pictures, like they were kind of rudimentary still, you know. So we stopped by and got some disposable cameras from like a gas station or something.
Yeah.
Took pictures throughout the trip, and it was fun. We had good times, you know. And afterwards, we had kind of like started sort of dating again, sort of, or something, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is good, you know. Glad we took that trip. I have these nice pictures, good memories and stuff. And then later on in life, I just stopped hearing from her, you know. And come to find out, she had, you know, gotten back together with her ex-boyfriend, and they were like getting high, and they had like a nudie photo shoot and put the pictures on MySpace. I'm definitely dating this story. And
Back in the early 2000s.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so all of that was very upsetting.
Right. As it
because-
should be and would be.
Right. Well, and it was like the first time I'd been through like that kind of emotional roller coaster, and I didn't
Right.
understand what was going on.
Because you're
And-
young. You're what, 19, 20 at the time?
Yeah, I was 19.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it's just a kid. I don't even know what the f- I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know? But the emotions were real, and the thing that I ran into was we had all these pictures, and people run into that on social media, like you were talking about,
Yeah.
with what you read.
Yeah.
But I had all these pictures, and I was just like, well, f these pictures, man. Like I've been looking at these, you know, for like a week or something, and they were good memories until just a second ago, you know.
Right.
And now I'm like.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I think I actually burned them all. I can't remember what I did, but I got rid of them. Maybe I just gave them the goodwill.
Right, yeah. They're in somebody else's house right now.
Yeah,
This
so
is the time that my son went to San Francisco. I don't know who that kid actually is, but that's him.
yeah, maybe some agency bought it for like backstory material or something.
Right.
Decorate somebody's safe house.
So there's some common threads in there. So in your song and in your story you just told, you know, you rekindled this relationship, and then you stopped hearing from her. And, you know, that was the same in mine, where, you know, I didn't really rekindle, but I kindled something, and then I stopped hearing from her, right? And it goes right to the, like, how can somebody make these promises, you know, and promise to pull the moon and the stars down for you, and then just in a blink of an eye, go back on it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's your song. I wouldn't say addresses it, but, you know, brings it up. And that's a good point. Like, you know, I wrote a story about it. He wrote a song about it. There's countless movies about it, and it happens all the time.
Yeah, it happens all the time. So what's the answer?
Right.
Right.
That's
Why are people so complicated?
$1 million question, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked before about the lyrical differences between when you're just writing something and when you're putting something to music.
Yeah.
Because when you write something, you tend to, what you write kind of has to be the music and the lyrics at the same time.
Right.
Whereas when you write a song, you can kind of get away with a lot because, you know, like a lot of those things, the lyrics in that song are not things that I would just kind of, man, why do I weep when I'm going to sleep?
Yeah.
How many tears do I have to pay?
Yeah.
You know, it just feels a little weird to say it, you know?
Right, to write that down and have to read it out loud.
Yeah.
You know, but it's still a good line. But when I write, like, I don't have to worry about, like, rhyming scheme or music theory or anything like
Right.
that, you know?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. But there's
can-
there's a rhythm to what you write.
Absolutely. Well, in the way I write, absolutely there is. There's a certain rhythm I have in mind, and we've talked about this before. About, like, I write long sentences, almost to the point of them being run-on sentences, and then I'll juxtapose it with, like, really short, choppy sentences, and to me that's like this ebb and flow of like kind of like a sea coast coming back and forth, you know. And,
Yeah.
And it's if you read it in your head, you kind of exhaust yourself on the really long sentences because I'm throwing so many words at you, and then there's that full stop, that period, and
You're like, what was the beginning of this thought again?
exactly, and then I kind of sum it up with a short sentence right afterward, or punctuate it with that. And it's the same with your music, like you had that chorus, and then it stops off, or it tops off with the whole long bars of the word dream.
Yeah.
You know? It's like I do all these things and then I dream.
Yeah.
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 And it's
a simple concept.
It's a simple concept, and it's actually really, really, really attractive in the music that you make.
Thanks. Yeah. So one of the things that actually I should talk about while we still have time is my music is going to be linked down below. I'm putting up my first video on a separate channel real soon, and it'll be more than just me and a guitar. I go through and I record all the different parts, the drums, the bass, the guitar, vocals, whatever else the song calls for. And so the recorded version will sound a little different, and at the end of the song it kind of devolves into this what I hope will sound something like a neurotic nightmare carousel thing.
Yeah. And that's intentional, like.
It's intentional. Yeah,
Right.
it's meant to sound like a dystopian carousel or something, because it's sort of an off-putting feeling, right? And really all I'm talking about in the song is feelings, right? I'm not making grand theses about the human condition or anything like
No.
that. I'm just saying, you did this thing, I felt this way. Here's how I feel. The
Right.
closest I get to making some kind of point about those feelings is the very last line of the song, which is, even though I can hate what you are, I look at them fondly like something afar. Because at some point you just got to be like, well, I can't really change what happened.
Right.
Those things happened, and I can just be miserable for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Or I can learn from it and move on. And as life would go on, I would do a lot more of that, which would lend some perspective to this initial experience of interacting with other human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not even romantically necessarily.
Right.
There have been people that come in and out of your life, like family members who have grown and changed in certain ways, and people that you've kind of grown apart from, even though the times that you had with those people were great.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree. People come into and out of your lives, and they walk next to you or in front of you or behind you for a certain amount of time, and the concept, or not the concept, but the trick is to learn what they have to teach you, and sometimes we'll find that person who's your soulmate, who's your partner in life, your partner in crime, as I like to call it, and they walk next to you the entire way. And you constantly learn from them. But then there's those other people who, they pop in for a few weeks, months, years, whatever, and you learn something about yourself, or something about the human condition, or something about them that either makes you grow as a person or makes you change your course.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, we all have an effect on each other, one way or the other.
Right.
Good or bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's for the good, but
Yeah.
there are bad influences out there.
Yeah. Well, and the nice thing is, the word that you use is cathartic.
Yes. Almost to ad nauseum. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's one of my favorite words.
The ability to be able to express those experiences, because it's not always going to be a song about a heartbreak.
Right.
There's several of them, but that's not always going to be what it is.
Right.
I've got songs that are lighthearted, songs that don't really mean anything, songs that make jokes, songs that talk about something beautiful.
Yeah.
But the reason that we do this is because it is
A system of catharsis.
a system of catharsis. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And even if it's just like with my writing, even if it's just something about me talking about a dog that I used to have, or about the morning, afternoon, and night sky,
This is like a teaser trailer right here. Yeah.
or like when George makes music that makes a joke, or is something more heavy set, it's a system of catharsis, because you have to heal your whole self, or be a whole self, and that's everything. That's your pain, that's your your good feelings. That's your silly feelings. That's your, your I can't think of the word now.
Yeah, and music is a way for me to do that.
Right.
Just like writing is for you. Music is a way that I can express my emotions without having to take them out on people. I can turn it into art instead of turning it into breaking news on CNN.
Or just unbridled anger towards the guy on the I-5 corridor.
Right, or even just repressed emotions. I'm not about to go do something crazy, and if I didn't have music, I'm not saying that I would. That's not where I'm going.
But music is a good vent and valve to have.
Yeah.
Right.
And valve is an interesting word choice.
But it's not just music, though, because there are people out there who like to paint, who like to draw, who like to sing, who like to dance, and those are all outlets of expression that you can absolutely channel an emotion through, right? And so not only do I write, but I'm also a visual artist by trade.
A very good one.
Flattery will get you nowhere with me.
Can't blame the guy for trying.
So I graduated from college with a multimedia arts and animation degree. So my first and most strong passion is the visual arts. I have had long conversations with George about visual artists such as Gustav Klimt, Henry Lautrec, Audrey Beardsley, and Alphonse Mucha, and so on and so forth. We just got the 2-minute warning again.
Okay.
Point I'm trying to make, though, is that I forgot the point. Take it away.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, so he's an artist, and he understands, short of, not just writing, he understands what it's like to be able to express yourself
Right.
artistically.
Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to say.
And whenever you have that product at the end of the day, and you look at it, you're just like, yep, that's that thing I was feeling. Then it's out in front of you and not just stuck inside of you.
Right.
And that's a good thing.
Right.
So we're gonna have one more segment. Generally, moving forward, we're gonna have a third person who will lend us a third perspective on the topic of the day, which today is
Nostalgic feelings.
nostalgic
Yeah.
feelings. Moving on from them, art as an expression, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we're going to come back after another smoke break and talk a little more to the podcast itself, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah. Ugh. Got it. Every time.
Every you say that every time. So welcome back. This is The Minimal Effort. I emphasize the because minimal effort without the definite article was already taken. And as we wrap up here, I just wanted to reiterate that the name Minimal Effort goes into the fact that this is a thing that we have to do on the side, and so we appreciate any and all support that we can get in this endeavor. It's an outlet for us. It's a way for us to shamelessly promote our own individual arts. And to that end, once again, you should be able to find the description below the video, which should have our links to
In the
his blog,
description. Yeah.
to my channel. And moving forward, we're going to be doing this once a week, I think on Saturdays. Bruce has a bunch of stuff to share. And I've got about 40 songs in the queue and maybe 20 more starts to songs.
And I've got about 6 or 7 essays, I guess they're called, in the hopper.
Okay.
And as this continues, as we continue to do this, I'll continue to write things, and they're not always going to be as heavy as what today was.
Yeah, today was kind of a heavy-handed topic, but
Right.
He's like, I've got happy songs, he's got a happy post.
Right.
We're probably going to run the full spectrum, and we're always going to try to have that third perspective at the table as well to make it seem like it's not just two crazy guys talking to each other.
But it could be.
But it could be.
We are two crazy guys that drink and talk.
Yeah.
A lot.
So, Once again, this is the Minimal Effort.
I'm Bruce.
I'm George,
Be well.
and we'll see you next week.